let's talk about the lack of Test cricket, because Angelo spoke about this earlier in the year. It was quite interesting because he kind of was blaming, I felt, kind of SLC for this, or the ICC for this. But I think part of the issue here is that there's nobody really in charge of Test cricket, and apart from maybe the players, the administrators, and the kind of podcasters around it, I wonder how many people on this planet really, really care that Sri Lanka are only playing 4 Test matches, and maybe that is part of the problem. And actually, we need our administrators to be a bit more proactive about finding space to find time when we can play Test cricket. And we could easily play more Test cricket during, for example, the IPL, because most of our Test team aren't even involved in it. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be a priority. And I think you have to look at it from the perspective of Sri Lanka have just had one of their best years in Test cricket in recent memory. And now, if you don't play much Test cricket this year, a lot of that momentum just gets completely lost. So I think it does have to be a priority. I think Sri Lanka's performances in 5-day cricket have been a major part of changing their perception over the past few months, and like I understand that it can be a loss leader when tests are played at home. I've got to try and get England back and bring some of those English fans down to make a bit of money. But yeah, of course, I'd like to see Sri Lanka playing as much Test cricket as possible. I'm not sure that many people care as much as we do, but the scheduling does seem awkward. Again, having these Australia tests during the IL/SAT20, I think, has meant that a lot of players who would have possibly picked up contracts have missed out on them. So at the moment, you're getting kind of a worst of both worlds, where the few tests that are scheduled are stopping players picking up franchise opportunities, and then for the rest of the year, the calendar's kind of like sitting barren.
Estelle, is there much conversation on the kind of in Sri Lanka amongst the people that you kind of hanging out with about the lack of tests? Are they worried?
Yeah, it's been an issue for a couple of years now, right? I think I recall Angelo talking about it earlier in 2023 as well, about the number of tests. But what's interesting is that comment you made on nobody being in charge of Test cricket is very relevant, because Angelo himself had tagged the ICC, but actually it's the boards that are responsible for scheduling and the number of tests in a series, right? So the fact that Sri Lanka are playing only 2 test series are down to the cricket boards handling it. So if you're playing 2 tests at home, that's us scheduling 2 tests at home. If you're playing 3 tests in England, that's the England Cricket Board scheduling 3 tests, right? So I feel like that is an issue in terms of conversation. As you said, like, look, there's a whole generation that's grown up with this 4 to 5 tests a year, right? There's no denying that. A lot of the teens now probably don't remember a time when Sri Lanka were playing, 8 tests, 9 tests a year. But it's also important in that, like Nick mentioned, Sri Lanka have done really well this year or during this cycle, right? And everybody, if there's anything you can say about sports fans, they love successful teams. So I think this is the opportunity to draw more people into Test cricket, because the team is doing well, and it's not a format where Sri Lanka has been left behind yet. Sure, we are not competing with maybe Australia, India, but apart from that, I think Sri Lanka can kind of give a fight in terms of, if they're playing at home against any of the other countries, right? Even Australia at home, we'll see how Sri Lanka competes. So this is the time where, if you want to make a case for Test cricket, it's probably the right time to do it, because we've had 2 consecutively um, good World Test Championship cycles, and you've got a team that's reasonably settled. So that's the area I feel like you have to, maybe if you are a big fan of Test cricket, it's the time to put pressure on the board, and show that you want more and you want to watch more and come to watch games, because that's one thing we lack, right? We talk about domestic cricket, we talk about test cricket, but unless it's a certain, like if it's Australia games, you have a crowd. If it's West Indies, you maybe don't have, right? So as fans, that's also a responsibility where you turn up to games or you tune in on TV, or you show that there is interest, because certainly from social media it seems like there is a lot of interest, because a lot of people seem to be raving about the fact that we don't play enough tests.
Dominic, is there value in SLC getting in touch with their counterparts in Zimbabwe and Afghanistan and in Ireland to try and get those teams over? But we'll park the whole whether or not we should be playing Afghanistan issue on the side for the moment here. But what I'm saying is the so-called kind of second tier sides in quotation marks. Is there value in getting those guys over to try and play in windows where we're not playing other cricket?
Well, this is a complicated question. You mentioned second tier sides, right? There's quite literally some discussions about relegating those sides to second tier status, which again, to my mind, downplays the idea of these teams fighting tooth and nail to get test status, right? And I think we should absolutely invite them. Those are teams that deserve to play test cricket, that have their own first class systems. We saw Rashid Khan come into a test series and take 11 wickets, 11, 12, I forget how many it was. There are players who are ready for this, who have been training their whole lives for this, and who are competitive on the international level. If you're telling me that Blessing Muzarabani couldn't run through our top order, on a little bit of a spicy deck, right? Or that Rashid Khan couldn't do that, or that, we saw what happened against England, right? When Ireland came to England and knocked them over for not very much. And then England, of course, returned the favor. These are sides that have lots of talent. Even, we won that Ireland series easily, but that's because we scored runs. We gave up a lot of runs. They scored nearly 500 runs in one of the innings that they played. I think it's absolutely worth it. And the only way they're going to become more competitive is by giving them chances, right? We played Bangladesh so many times and everyone was like, oh yeah, they're playing Bangladesh. They're playing Bangladesh. This is rubbish. But the reason why Bangladesh has become a competitive side at home is because they've played some teams. We saw this stat and I shared it with the group. Joe Root has played 64 test matches against Australia and India alone. He's played 2 test matches against Bangladesh.
That's why you can't take his stat seriously.
Seriously, it's just he hasn't played in Dhaka or Sylhet. No, but I think that speaks to what's going on. We can't be we have to be part of the solution, which means saying, okay, teams that don't get the opportunities to play, they should come and play us, right? It's good for our players, because I think the other thing too is that playing red ball cricket is a habit. It's not easy to go from playing a T20 match to going and saying, okay, I got to string together 6 balls in exactly the same place. I've got to play defensive shots for 12 balls in a row, right, in order to get through this period. I've got to, think about the ball that's going to swing in and then seam away. Right, all those things are different habits that need to be cultivated, and I'm all for those series. And I think it would be really good on SLC to support that and throw the gates open. Let people come for free. Let people watch. Let people enjoy the cricket. And I think it would turn out well for the side that get experience. And I think the more those teams play, the more competitive they are, and the more value you're going to get back when you play them again.